Welcome back to CNS News. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Please remember to share and hit the notification button. Once again, we're talking about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. I understand that they have deployed more FBI agents to the scene. If you guys remember, I said that I didn't want to overstep and I would like to be compassionate. However, the alleged ransom note and the alleged ransom deadline has passed. Okay? And Nancy is still missing. I have been following this story since the beginning, and I feel like her children are somehow involved. I'm sorry. I feel that way. But I feel like Nancy hasn't disappeared. I feel like Nancy is not missing. I feel like they did something to Nancy Guthrie and they are covering it up. I think that her children are involved, and I'm sorry, but this is so weird that I don't have a choice but to feel the way that I'm feeling at this point. I'll continue to cover the story and I'll keep bringing you the news. But I really feel bad for Nancy because her family, something's off. Something's off. I can just feel like something's off. More FBI has been deployed. And if you notice, like I mentioned before, this investigation is happening at Nancy's house and at Annie's house, Savannah Guthrie's sister. And they're acting really strange when they're on camera talking about this. Their pleas don't sound genuine. You know what? I'm just going to let you guys hear what the news has to say about this. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Have a great day.
The FBI has released a new statement in the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mother. Brian Schrader's in the live center with this latest development. Brian?
Well, a deadline in a purported ransom note passed 3 hours ago. In that ransom note, they demanded $6 million and threatened the life of Nancy Guthrie if they didn't have it by 5 o'clock Tucson time. But the FBI office in Phoenix tonight says that they are not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and the people that they call the suspected kidnappers. They also said, nor have we identified a suspect or person of interest in the case at this time. They went on to say, and this appears to be just an appeal for public information, someone has that one piece of information that can help us bring Nancy home. It comes after Savannah Guthrie posted a new video this afternoon saying that the family believes that Nancy Guthrie is still out there. She said, we are at an hour of desperation and asked the public for their help.
The desperate search continues. Thank you, Brian.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help.
Savannah Guthrie pleading for the public's help. The deadline set in ransom notes possibly connected to her mother Nancy's disappearance has now passed.
So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
That post just hours before a deadline of 5 o'clock last night to send millions in Bitcoin to someone claiming to be Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper. There have been 2 messages from the purported kidnapper that law enforcement sources told ABC News appear to have come from the same sender using the same encryption tools to cover their tracks. But the FBI has not been able to determine whether the demand is credible, saying it's not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and suspected kidnappers, nor have we identified a suspect or person of interest in this case at this time.
It appears that both letters were sent from the same Onion support network that it was processed through to get to law enforcement and the media. But that doesn't mean it came from legitimate hostage takers. It could just be people who are fraudulent and trying to make money.
The investigation now in its 2nd week.
This busy intersection is not far from where Nancy Guthrie lives, and as police search for useful video, they focused on cameras like this one and police say they've gathered data from nearly every intersection like this across Tucson.
Rooftop cameras were inspected this weekend, a car was towed from the property, and officials examined what appears to be a septic tank. Outside Nancy's home, a sign of support, reading, "Dear Guthrie family, your neighbors stand with you."
Just like everybody else, it's shocking when it happens in your community.
Billboards have also been put up in nearby states, but still no suspects, no new leads, and no proof of life. In the family's most recent video, Savannah thanked everyone for their prayers and love, saying they believe somehow, some way, that their mom is feeling those prayers.
Whether or not these ransom notes are legitimate, that is clearly a matter for the authorities, especially now that the deadlines have come and gone. Here's the thing. TMZ was one of the first outlets to receive a ransom note. And earlier today, I had the chance to speak with TMZ co-executive producer Charles Lapaudiere about the case. Take a look.
Charles, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. I want to start off with the ransom note that TMZ got last week. I'm trying to understand if the instructions are clear, right? I mean, there's this idea of this Bitcoin payment, which is obviously very concerning because there could be a quick transfer and I might not be able to be traced easily. How clear are the instructions on how to pay the money? And also, second part, how can you check to see if the money's been paid?
So I will say that the note is very direct. It is very clear. Exactly what it is that they want. The address, the Bitcoin address is there. There's nothing there's nothing sketchy about it. It's very clear what it is they want and when they want it, how much they want. And as far as the Bitcoin address, I did not know this. What I did know about Bitcoin is that it is not traceable, right? That once the money goes in there, you can't claw it back unless you have the keys to that Bitcoin address. And obviously only the owner would have that. So once the money goes in, it's gone and you can't trace it. What I didn't realize, and someone in my office who is up on Bitcoin revealed this morning, is that if you have the Bitcoin address, you can see what's in there. You just can't get to it. So we have been checking that Bitcoin address that was in the ransom note. It is a legit Bitcoin address, but there is nothing in it. So we don't know if that means they haven't paid the money. It is also entirely possible that the note on Friday that went to one of the Tucson stations had a different Bitcoin address that has not been revealed, and maybe the money's being paid there. Beyond that, I guess the easiest way to say this is there is no third deadline. There's no next option. The kidnappers said, you have last Thursday at 5 o'clock, pay this amount. If you don't, Monday at 5 o'clock, you got to pay this amount. And then there's no further instructions after that. So it's pretty clear what their intent is and what they're insinuating if that money is not paid.
And that's what makes it even more chilling when Savannah posted that message today, just her, asking for the public's help, pleading for the public. If you see something, say something, report it. We need your help. Whenever there's been videos put out by her and her family, people have been pouring through every word. They've been trying to see if there's any coded language. They're trying to see if there's something more there. And also the strategy of posting those videos and when they post them. As somebody who's now been a part of this case for over a week, do you see anything from the message today that stands out to you as maybe what might be going on here?
I think that today's message is a big contrast to the message that they made on Saturday. The Saturday message, where it was Savannah and her brother and sister, that they were very clearly reading. Savannah was reading off of something that I would guess the FBI helped them craft, and that there were certain words they used, the use of the word, we want to celebrate with our mother. We understand, we received your message and we understand, and she is very valuable to us. We will pay. The way it was all said, that felt like it was a direct response to things that were in the Friday note, and also things that possibly the FBI wants them to convey to the kidnappers. hopefully getting them to send proof of life or getting them to have a direct line of communication. And we don't know if they were successful. But I will say that today's message, the one that Savannah posted by herself today, is different in that it didn't seem scripted, didn't seem like she was reading anything, or that she was even trying to convey anything other than thanking the public for their prayers and well wishes for Nancy and making it clear that they, the family, believe Nancy is still alive and they need the public's help.
I got to ask you about this weekend because there was so much reported activity at Nancy's house and Annie's house. So this is Nancy's daughter, Savannah's sister. It was hard to shake up what was going on there. Anything you can read into that?
There are, and the last thing I want to do is, fuel any rumors out there, because there have been, certainly there's a lot of theories. And you understand that this happens in cases like this because law enforcement, it's necessary. They need to keep a lot of details close to the vest. And so when they're not putting out information, people, in the absence of actual information from authorities, people start coming up with theories. People in the media, people outside the media, just observers. And, the fact that they went back to Annie's house several times makes people think certain things. But it also, you've heard law enforcement say that we're obviously looking for new evidence, but we're also going back over evidence that we've collected already and trying to go back to areas where we collected it. Did we miss something? So the fact that they're back at Annie's house may not be anything more than, hey, this is some place where we know we can get some information connected to Nancy. She's probably been in that house several times. It's not far from her home. And so they're just looking for anything that that will possibly lend a clue.
And Chris, you said basically you doubt that Nancy Guthrie's disappearance was actually a kidnapping. The fact that Savannah Guthrie has now put out this video that very clearly seems to indicate that there has not been proof of life, there has not been communication with the kidnappers, and now broadening it out to we just want the public's help. Does that prove you right?
Well, I think so. I mean, I wish I was wrong, because that would bring us some hope that Nancy's still alive. But first talking to the kidnappers and saying we'll pay, and then 2 days later, after the deadline, or right pretty close to the deadlines, appealing to the public and saying, hey, I need your help. This is our desperate hour. It is not compatible with working with the kidnappers to try to get a safe return and having paid a ransom. So those are just irreconcilable. You can't put those two together and say, wow, this is there's a strong possibility that this really is a legitimate ransom demand, and that they do in fact have a live person, Nancy, and they're holding her. So unfortunately, I think I am right. I don't want to be.
Yeah, Tracy, there's so much of this case that is in a word bizarre, and there's a lot of other adjectives you can use. Over the weekend, I cannot tell you how many pet theories I had, and people asked me, could this have happened? Could that have happened? And every one of them, you kind of had to say, well, maybe, because we don't know. And we don't have any facts that sort of lead us in one direction, other than what Chris points out, that this doesn't seem like a ransom kidnapping, because typically the kidnappers want their money and they get in touch. Is there a theory of the case that this fact pattern really fits?
Well, here's the thing I do want to say respectfully, Chris. To say that it's not a kidnapping is perhaps a little bit irresponsible. This ransom may not have been valid, which I have said all along may not be the case, because the FBI has never come out and absolutely said that this was a valid ransom. We were just working under the auspices that it might be. Now, she still may have been taken against her will. There's no question about that. So I think whether or not this ransom is valid versus whether or not this is a kidnapping, those are two different things. And I think we have to separate those, because that's how the case will ultimately be worked. In terms of a working theory, I mean, I think you don't have a choice but to go under the auspices that she was, quote, kidnapped or taken against her will, because as we know now, an 84-year-old woman in her state really can't get far on her own. So there's no way that this could be anything other than her being taken against her will.
Focus at the Bureau, former FBI director. By the way, we welcome him to our Fox family once again, the newest Fox News contributor. He's back, the one and only Dan Bongino. You come at this, Dan, first of all, as a friend, number one, number two, but also having now recently spent time on the inside. And it's so easy for people on the sidelines, Monday morning quarterbacks, to be second guessing everything law enforcement is doing. However, I do think a definitive statement like we mentioned, the FBI says they are unaware that Savannah Guthrie was talking with her mom's suspected kidnappers, means they know everything about the communications to this point. What is likely in your mind going on behind the scenes?
Okay, so the FBI was brought in a couple days after there was, you have to have a request for assets to be brought in, or you have to have federal jurisdiction. This was done by request. That's why you saw the crime scene was reopened again. That was the FBI ERT, from what I've heard, going back in, the evidence response team, to take over and do what they do. They do it best. That's all they do, is process evidence at these scenes. So what's going on right now? I see three possibilities, Sean, and I'm not going to weight them. These are three possibilities. If you apply Occam's razor, I see could apply. The first would be, obviously, it's a kidnapping. That was an intended kidnapping for a ransom payment. That would be the first possibility. Again, I'm not weighting any of them. The second possibility would be this was just a crime that went awry. Someone was at the house. Maybe it was a burglary. Something went bad, and that you've got some bad actors committing another crime unrelated, in other words, requesting a ransom for something you didn't do just to take advantage of a situation like this. The third possibility, again, this is and this is where I think you have to kind of think outside of the box, is, especially given some of the messaging that we've seen lately, is the possibility that there may have been some kind of maybe a medical emergency or something, and maybe this was not a kidnapping. And I say that only because, and again, I'm not weighting these possibilities. We're just, when you can't find someone at a crime scene like this right away within the first couple of days, you either have really good surgical type operators, or the story you've been told or you may have believed may not be the story. I mean, think about it. What are the possibilities that there's no LPR trips, license plate readers, that Somex scrubs, social media exploitation turned up nothing, that cast analysis, cell phone analysis, that there's other tools I don't want to really talk about, but I promise they're there. We've used them in cases, that none of this stuff was tripped after the Bureau came in and applied all their assets. It's just, it seems really strange.
Let me quote veteran FBI Special Agent Lance Lysing of Arizona. And he said the notes to the media outlets, that part of the investigation now he believes is come and gone. And then he said, in legitimate ransom cases, kidnappers move fast. They establish leverage quickly. Communication begins within hours, not days, of an abduction. Proof of life is produced early and often. This case has not followed the history of a typical kidnapping at all. What does that tell you?
Well, there's two conflicting points on this. One, as I told you before, with this relatively what appears to be sterile crime scene, you would have these incredibly skilled, and I don't mean that, of course, in a qualitatively good way, but they have these criminal skill sets that they were able to not leave a trace of DNA, a footprint, a fingerprint, a tire print. Again, they didn't trip a license plate reader, managed to turn off any cell phone type of activity, and then you forget the medication. It just, again, it doesn't seem like that's particularly well thought out. How are you going to go out and get the medication afterwards? It's not that easy to go pop in a Walgreens when you know everybody on planet Earth is looking for someone. I mean, it just seems like a lot of conflicting information. And that's why I say I'm not weighting any of those stories. But clearly at this point, I think we have to consider everything outside the box, because whatever is inside the box is not really panning out right now.
What do you say to the FBI experts that I've talked to, the Sheriff's Department out there, that they're not ruling anything out? And I want to be very clear. I'm not rushing to judgment. I don't want people to rush to judgment. We don't do that on this show. We make a point of not doing that. But 90% of abductions usually involve someone that the abducted person knows, and a lot of times that ends up being family. Now, Those are the odds. I'm not making any conclusions, any accusations at all. Just to the contrary, I think we need to be very careful. But those numbers are real. So if you're an FBI agent, that is in your head, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you got to consider that. I believe that was scenario number 2 I discussed, that this was an incident that went bad, someone who knew the person, like you said, landscaper, electrician. We had a case in Florida like this before I was in the FBI, way before, but a woman had let a handyman in the house. They found the woman in the septic system. I mean, you have to consider that it was someone in the inner circle as well, that it was a horrible crime. We don't know what happened, and that the distraction may be, in fact, a request for ransom later on to get people off the trail. I'm not telling you it's what happened, but again, when the story doesn't pan out after a couple of days, and I've been on these, Sean, I mean, we handled the Minnesota shooting of the lawmakers. You know, we had the incident up in Coeur d'Alene. I mean, we get woken up, me and Cash, all night on this stuff. I know the assets that get deployed. If you don't find them within the first couple of days, there's something about the story that's not right.
Yeah, it's scary. We're always glad to have you back on the show. Welcome back to our Fox family. It's always great to have you here.
Let's bring in television journalist, now with law enforcement, Emmett Miller, former homicide detective Rachel Evans, political and legal strategist Katie Zachariah, founder of LA Mom magazine Shirin Yadigar, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker, and former FBI special agent Stuart Kaplan. Thank you all for coming on. Stuart, to you first. I want to play a little bit more of this video that Savannah Guthrie posted today, and then I'll get your take on it. Watch this.
So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation. And we need your help.
Hour of desperation. The deadline, Stuart, has now come and gone. We're not saying that a payment is not possible in some capacity. We're saying that we don't know of any payment. The FBI is intimating that there has been no payment. What do you think about her mannerisms, the note itself? What's your take about this, Stuart?
Let me say 2 things. One is, this is the first time that Savannah Guthrie came out unscripted, not measured, and she spoke, I think, from how she was feeling. To the point with respect to the FBI and its recent statement, look, Trace, it's been 4 days. It wasn't until last Thursday that there was a public press conference. My take, and I know this is a little bit of a curveball, and my panel may or may not agree with me, I take the silence, or the fact that law enforcement has gone silent, as an indication of confidence in this case. I think the one thing I would think that we would all agree with, the person who's responsible for the abduction, the kidnapping, or the murdering of Nancy Guthrie was in her inner circle. That is someone that she knew. That makes the web much smaller. I think the FBI and law enforcement has a primary suspect. I think they're waiting him out. I think it's not chargeable right now. It may be circumstantial. It's not a question of discovery. I think it's a question of whether or not this person is going to make a mistake. I also just want to make a quick point. The former deputy director, FBI, Dan Bongino, was on tonight, and he said, and I agree, it is impossible in this day and age to get away with not leaving some digital footprint. The fact that we haven't heard anything, to me, seems less credible. I think the FBI has something. They just are keeping this very, very, very close to the vest.
Rachel, 3 points there. I mean, he's talking about the fact that, 1, a digital footprint. 2, you see Savannah Guthrie, and he thinks the police department is confident at this point in time. Savannah Guthrie does not appear to be confident at all. She said the family is desperate, and that's the way it looks. How does this whole thing look to you?
Well, it's difficult because when you're the lead detective on a case, there are things that you're going to hold close to the vest, because if it gets out, it can compromise the case. Right. And you have to think about something 5 years down the road when you go to trial, not today. So they may have something, and if they don't, then you can understand her plea.
Yeah. It's interesting, Shirin, because you look at her body language and you kind of read this, and as a journalist, and I was kind of looking at this, and you see that she seems less emotional, but more desperate. And she used the word desperate. She didn't appear as emotional as she did in the first couple of, but she does appear to be like You know, we are at the edge of the cliff here.
I mean, it's her mother. All of us can understand what it's like when you think about your mother being kidnapped, 86-year-old mother who lives by herself. She is desperate. We don't know what she knows. Nobody knows except for her and the detectives working on the case. What we do know as Americans is that all of us are invested in this case. All of us are yearning for the moment that we know that her mother is alive, and we are coming together as a community. And honestly, I feel so proud as an American that finally CNN, Fox, NBC, we're all coming together because we just want to help bring her mom home.
Yeah, you know, Nicole, the FBI statement, I thought there was a lot of things, and you probably read this 4 or 5 times, a lot of things that kind of jumped out at me. I want to read this part because this part to me, I thought was, you know, the most striking. It leads with, for more than a week, FBI agents, analysts, and professional staff have worked around the clock to reunite Nancy Guthrie with her family. The FBI is not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and suspected kidnappers, nor have we identified a suspect or person of interest in the case at this time. If there is no communication, could there possibly be a payment? Could there possibly be information that they're just not telling us?
There could be. And in my opinion, the FBI, like Stuart mentioned, they're going to keep it very tight to the vest. They're not going to be divulging information at this time because they need to continue to gather as much evidence as they can. I believe that they will not be coming forward with anything substantial until they have a person of interest and potentially someone in custody, or until Nancy Guthrie is brought back and returned to her family. And we are obviously not seeing that right now. But again, it goes back to these ransom emails. What was the intention of these emails? If the Guthries were to pay, for instance, and there is no return of Nancy Guthrie, I would say within the next 12 hours or so, again, give or take, and around that time frame, then it's a hoax. Or if the offenders were connected to the ransom emails and there's no return of Nancy Guthrie or a sign of where she might be, then I believe that's a false flag. Either way, we need Nancy Guthrie to be returned to her family, and the FBI and all of law enforcement will not stop until that happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But again, Emmett, I go back to the FBI thing, and this whole phrase where it comes out and says we have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case at this time. It's not like the sheriffs have identified somebody and they're not letting on to the FBI. I mean, this seems like it's a blanket statement for all of law enforcement in that area. Seems striking to me. What about you?
Well, if you look at it, the whole case has been unprecedented in the sense that we've never really had a kidnapping case that's been given to the media. You know, first they give it to TMZ and they give it to a few local stations that are down in Arizona. Now the second note is being given only to the station in Arizona. Even TMZ doesn't really know what's going on. There's words that are coming from Harvey Levin that are apparently being written in the note. Harvey Levin says the person that wrote the note is possibly very well spoken. Well, we don't know. Maybe they did it through AI. So there are too many unknowns to actually know what's going on, except that we know that they want to get it through Bitcoin, and except that we know that they're very reticent to give any sign of life, which could mean that they're really trying to cover their tracks.
Yeah. Meantime, Paul Morrow said the following here. Watch.
I don't read anything into the fact that her siblings are not with her this time. It looks to me like this is the first spontaneous video that we've gotten. I would argue that this one likely not coached by the FBI, unlike what we saw in the past. It looks to me like an air of desperation.
It really does, Katie, look like she just went out and did this on her own. I mean, she's very good at broadcasting. We know that. She looks like she wanted something out. She wanted something to be out there, and she put it out.
I might be a little controversial, but I also know that she also might be saying, we need you, we're desperate, and they have a lead, and they're trying to kind of put it off the tracks. But watching her and really connecting with the audience and saying, if you do have information, we need to corroborate whatever lead there may be. I also think the FBI might have information, which is why they've gone quiet. I tend to agree with Stuart there. And now this is kind of this song and dance until they finally can zero in on their suspect.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those things, Stuart Kaplan, going back to you, a former FBI agent told me that, you know, the whole idea behind ransom, and you probably would agree with this, the whole idea behind kidnappings that he has been involved with is that these ransom notes don't come days later like this. The ransom notes come in hours, and the proof of life comes in hours, and it is repeatedly coming. There is always proof of life because they want whoever is going to pay this to know that there is something valuable in exchange for what you are about to give.
100% accurate. And, 20, 30 years ago, when we didn't have this, technology, you could wait it out. In this day and age, you want to get in and get out as quickly as possible. And again, don't leave any potential digital footprints. The problem also, Trace, quite frankly, is this idea that Nancy Guthrie is going to be turned back over alive and well. Keep in mind, that would be a treasure trove of evidence for the FBI then to go out and try to identify who that person or people were. Male, female, dialect, accent, age, how far did they take her? Trace, in this case, absent someone parachuting into Nancy Guthrie's house and jettisoning out of her house, there would have been digital footprints. The FBI is deploying technology that has never been deployed in these type of cases before. It's unprecedented. The fact that we're not seeing the FBI front and center, keep in mind just a couple of months ago during the Brown University shooting scenario, we couldn't get away from the FBI getting in front of the podium or local law enforcement. Now all of a sudden we have a major national case with such notoriety. We haven't heard from the FBI in front of a podium. That signals to me they got their person. They're just going to play a cat and mouse game.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think they have their person, Rachel?
I mean, it seems highly probable because, I agree. Like, if you have someone and you're ready to put them in custody, then you have to make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you do that. You have one chance to do it right and to get her back alive.
Yeah, that's a good point. Meantime, panel, stand by. Another deadline has come and gone with no persons of interest, no suspects. So let's focus on the timeline of the ransom notes, as well as the messages issued by the Guthrie family. The senior national correspondent, Kevin Cork, live in D.C. with a breakdown. Kevin, good evening.
Evening to you, Trace. Given that there have now been multiple deadlines that have been passed, there are new concerns tonight about not just the trajectory of the investigation, but of course the also possible fate for the 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. The first deadline, as you know, passed Thursday, February 5th, with an alleged ransom calling for a $4 million Bitcoin payment. And while we know little of what may or may not have transpired with respect to negotiation between the family and the elder Guthrie's apparent abductors thereafter, we do know that a second deadline set for February 9th, of course that's today at 5 p.m. local time, has since come and gone. Only this time, we've been led to believe that Guthrie's apparent abductors have asked for a $6 million Bitcoin payment. And while the family remains very hopeful tonight for a safe return, some experienced investigators worry that once the money's been sent, the chances of getting Ms. Guthrie back or that cash might be slim.
Once that money is in that wallet, the chances of you ever tracking that money down is slim to none, and slim just left.
Bottom line, they need to have proof of life. Meantime, prayers and, of course, the waiting continues tonight, Trace.
Kevin Cork, we'll get back to you as the news warrants as well. Thank you. Let's bring back in the panel. Shirin Yadigar, to you first. I mean, what Kevin was saying there, it fascinates me because I want to know, why has there not been a third deadline issued in this? I mean, you're looking at the whole case and you think, is there no third deadline? And so far, no new demand. I know they were asking for $6 million in crypto, but there's been no new demand. There is no new deadline. So unless new information comes out in the next few hours, 24 hours or so, it seems to me like the FBI is right, that the communication has been cut off.
Right. Well, I think as a journalist looking at this case and also as a mother, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this is it, right? I mean, there are no other deadlines. The deadline has come and gone. So what does that mean? I mean, if there was no sign of life and if she wasn't alive, I think we would know. But I think they have a deal. I think, like everyone has been saying on the panel, I think that she's alive. I think that we're going to see her and we're going to get her home.
Why the note? Why the note from Savannah then? I mean, why the desperation note? If things are about to be locked up or are locked up, why the note? Why not just keep your powder dry and wait until something happens?
To throw them off and to also just have a plea out. I mean, I think as children, if our mothers are taken captive, we are so desperate. We are just going to reach out, and the community has been there for her. And she's just saying, if anyone knows anything, tell us. Maybe, who knows? I mean, you run out of hope as a child. She's dying to see her mother. She's so worried.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nicole Parker, to you, I'm just wondering, why would you pay out ransom if you have not gotten proof of life? I Would it be your advice? Would it be, you know, something that you would think is unusual if you have not gotten proof of life? If the FBI is right, then why would you pay the ransom?
Well, we're at a very tough spot. And again, you know, as a law enforcement officer, you think, you know, you put your agent hat on, but you also put on your human hat. And this is a mother. And the reason, look, I'm just going to, the FBI never makes the decisions. The family makes the decisions on whether or not a ransom would be paid. And the FBI has been very clear about that, right? So they can give a recommendation based on what they see, what they've seen in the ransom emails, how they analyze the statement, things of that sort. But at the end of the day, it's the family's decision. Ultimately, because a family wants their mom.
Yeah.
That's why. They are desperate. To an individual, $6 million, I've said it before, you cannot put a price tag on a life. And again, maybe this is a legit ransom. Maybe it's a hoax. Maybe it's a false flag. That's up to the family members to decide. If we're going to pay this, we are fully aware that we may put out $6 million and get nothing in return, and the communication goes absolutely silent. But again, that's up to the individual. Everyone has to make their own choice. I feel awful that they are even in this situation in the first place. And if there's any sick individual that is so evil to prey on them in their most desperate moment, that is absolutely disgusting.
Emmett, she brings up a great point. Was it a kidnapping, or was it a crime that went bad, or is it a hoax?
I think if you're going to do a crime and you go inside of someone's house, you got to know that there's something in there that you want and you're actually going to get your hands on once you get inside. I think it was a kidnapping simply because they didn't know to take the medicine. They were a long period of time between the time that her pacemaker lost contact with her cell phone and the camera was ripped off from the outside. They knew to send the emails. They knew that they wanted Bitcoin. What they don't know is that Bitcoin is traceable on the back end because there are laws in place right now, know your customer, anti-money laundering laws, that make you have to give an ID if you want the money. If you want it turned from Bitcoin back into actual spendable cash, you've got to give an ID. And once you do, they got you.
When they went into there's a septic tank in the back. When they went in looking at that, Rachel, did you think, but they're clearly looking for a body, they're looking for something. I mean, homicide detective, that's kind of standard operating procedure. So when you do that, do you think, okay, this investigation has taken a whole new turn?
I mean, that's what I thought. But the other thing is, you're in that crime scene, you have one chance to do it right. And so you want to make sure you scour everything, because if you leave something unturned, you leave the family questioning you as a law enforcement officer helping them.
Because somebody walked up to you and said, hey, detective, did you guys check the septic tank?
Right. Like, you have to check everything. You have to go in with an open mind. You have no idea what the case is going to be, and it'll surprise you who a murder suspect would be. And so you have to go in with a very open mind and be clear-headed and be open to however the case may go.
Yeah. It's interesting, Katie, because they had so much information in the first couple of days of this thing. In fact, the sheriff had to walk back some of that information, and a lot of criticism about giving the house back to the family and then retaking the house. And now we've heard crickets. For about 2 or 3 days, we've heard crickets from the local law enforcement. FBI is giving us some trickle of information, but you wonder, we've heard the plausible theory, which is, listen, they're done working. They've got some good leads to go on, and maybe tomorrow's the big day, which, by the way, we're going to be out there live tomorrow with our show, so we'll be able to tell you firsthand. But it seems to me as if that, the information has slowed to a trickle.
Well, I think we were watching them overshare, and they opened the crime scene way ahead of when they should have, and that obviously they walked that back, and now I think they're overcorrecting by being incredibly quiet. The FBI, following the timeline, the FBI intervened or stepped in or assisted, I guess would be the better word.
Right.
As they became more quiet. And now the crickets, as I said before, and Stuart pointed out, indicate, I think, they're on to a lead rather than the opposite, that they don't have anything. Though Nanos being at the basketball game and facing scrutiny is absolutely, he should face scrutiny for that. You're the lead investigator on this. And so that, I feel like the local sheriffs have had kind of a dodgeball situation where with the FBI, it's been pretty seamless since they got in.
What would you add to that, Stuart?
My only point is, and Trace, we've gone over and over again, this idea, and keep in mind, the jumping off point says, and we have worked on the hypothesis that this happened in the wee hours of the morning, sometime after 1 a.m. I'm not so sure that Nancy Guthrie was in the house at 1 o'clock in the morning. She could have been removed from that house or never got back to the house. Again, there's a lot of information that we seemingly are relying upon. Keep this in mind, Trace. Absent the lack of a subscription agreement to these Ring doorbells, anybody going around that house would have to have assumed, in looking for other video cameras, that they themselves would be captured and uploaded into the cloud. Just by removing the Ring doorbell camera does not in and of itself guarantee you have not been caught on that camera. Again, that's a very, very small group, intimate group of any person who would have that information to understand perhaps their mother-in-law, their aunt, the person they look after didn't renew or doesn't have a subscription to a Ring doorbell camera. It leads me to a very identifiable small group of people.
Yeah, last thoughts from you, Nicole, because I still haven't figured out the blood at the doorstep. Nowhere else, not on the steps, not in the house, the blood at the doorstep. Anything that you would have to say about that?
Look, the one thing we know for certain is it is her blood, and we know that they were in that house for approximately 41 minutes, or at least that's the time frame in which the Ring doorbell stopped working and the time that the pacemaker, as we piece it together. Again, no one on this panel or anyone speaking has been into the crime scene. And that's the most important thing. So we're all doing the best that we can based on our investigative experience.
Right.
But I think it's an important point as well. Stuart talked about, we don't know that she was even in the home. We also don't know, did the brother-in-law drop her off? Did he ever go back home? I mean, law enforcement probably knows. And if we track the cell phone and the cast and, the exact pings, that's just an example of things that law enforcement knows that we may not be privy to or thinking about, but that's why the advanced technology, it doesn't lie. If you have a cell phone and you've got that thing on, those towers, your cell phone's pinging off of some sort of tower. I've had that question myself. Was it the brother-in-law that dropped her off? Did he ever leave the scene? Those are the types of questions that law enforcement is getting to the bottom of. But again, looking back at the Bitcoin, I think a member of the panel made a very important point, and I'm just going to say this. People make money off of the idea that Bitcoin is secure, okay? Anything in this day and age, through advanced technology, you can find things. The FBI can find things, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Nicole, thank you. Panel,